All right. Well, thank you first and foremost. Thank you for having us and allowing us to present this month to you guys about what we do at Jabil. So, myself, I'm the HR manager at Jabil. I've been here almost 6 years, but have worked at a number of other employers here locally as well. I'll let Dustin talk a little bit about himself as well, and then we will give you an overview of the facility, what we do here, maybe a little bit of history in terms of Jabil, Johnson and Johnson, DePuy Synthes, kind of a history over the past 20 or so years since the facility's been here, right across from the Amman Corning Airport. So I'm not wearing a mask. I'm probably supposed to be. We wear masks at all time in the facility currently, but I'm one of the few people who have private offices. So Dustin is actually not. He's out in more of an open area, so that's why he's got his on. So, but I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, so I'm Dustin Smith. I'm the manufacturing manager here. So I joined the family here in Elmira about 6 years ago. Prior to that, I had been in the Midwest, primarily in automotive industry. Decided to make a career change and come to the medical device job and moved to upstate New York. So here I am. Excited to meet everyone.
So I don't know how long we'll run, depending upon the questions, but I know that Dustin has to drop off at 2:30 for another meeting with some above site folks. So I'll continue to stay on after that, but I'm going to let him kind of run at least from an overview of the facility, which he probably is going to thank me for later. But he honestly is just better equipped to kind of give the best overview of what we do here. Can you see my screen? What do I need to do differently?
I did see it.
I did see it too. Yeah. Just if you could take your PowerPoint to full screen and do it in presentation mode.
Sure can.
It would just be bigger.
Oh, you had it.
You guys see it?
Well, not in presentation mode.
Huh.
Well, while Josh is doing that, for the sake of time, I'll go ahead and walk through a little bit of the overview, and I know he'll get that squared away. But so essentially, the site has been here under, this is the third name of the company, but it remains essentially unchanged in the product and processes. So we started out as a company called Synthes, for anyone that may have heard that term in this location. Then became a merger with Johnson and Johnson, and so it became a company called DePuy Synthes. And we have since April of 2019 entered into a strategic partnership with a company called Jabil. So we still manufacture the same products. So essentially we've been in operations for 19 years. For the most part, we work around the clock. We've got some processes that work a subset of 2 shifts or 1 shift, depending upon the current demand. When we talk about 3 business units, essentially, as you notice down in the last bullet there, trauma, CMF, and spine. So essentially trauma would be all extremities, all major bone groups. CMF being cranial maxillofacial, which is the head and scalp area, and then spine, of course, being unique in the challenges with that. So essentially we're a machine shop. We have what we call 36 production cells, which have a very similar look, but they all produce unique products and part families. And because we're a regulated industry with the FDA, because the majority of what we produce are implants, it is we have to divide and qualify each product to a certain group of equipment. So next slide, Josh, if you don't mind.
You don't see my next slide.
Well, yeah. So now we're down to, which is fine. This is fine. So essentially what I mentioned, we are a machine shop. Josh, if you want to go back one slide, actually. Ladies, we rehearsed this. I promise we're typically quite polished.
It didn't go back?
No.
You don't see the one with the map. That's wild. All right.
I think you probably needed to be in presentation mode when you were sharing. So you may have to unshare, get into presentation mode, and then share. I'll share.
Presentation.
There you go. Can you go back one more? There you are.
There we go. Okay, so just in general, a little bit of the specifics around us as a site. So as you can see, we're hovering right around 406 employees, so that can change up and down depending upon demand. Johnson & Johnson remains our primary customer. So at this point, we still remain heavily focused on medical devices. Do a little over 4 million units a year. And you can see, so we have a breakdown there where we talk about domestic or import, so US and outside US. We also have sister sites in the European market that handle the majority of the European volume. However, some of the product that we make is unique that we only make here. So we satisfy global demand for those products. From a sterile and non-sterile, most of what we do when we talk about implants, we package product that is non-sterile, and it will then be sterilized prior to surgery, of course, but we do very little that gets sterilized directly out of the facility. And then this is kind of interesting. A lot of people don't realize, but so 98% of our product is for humans, and 2% we produce for vet applications. It's actually very similar, if not the same product that would go into a human, but can be utilized for dogs, cats, horses, just about any animal that might have that might warrant a surgery for a broken bone or some other affliction. Which we have actually had several employees that have personal stories for their own pets that have received our products. So we just kind of list some of the processes that we have. A lot of machining work that we do. We also do finishing. We spoke about packaging. So when we speak non-sterile, any sterile applications that leave this facility go to a third party, and that's done there. We do venture into some 3D printing. So at this point, we don't produce any implants with 3D printing. However, that is kind of where the technology is moving to. We exclusively use that for non-product applications. So we're just under 100,000 square feet of manufacturing space. We've got a nice size facility right here on 33 acres. We like to talk about having our own private airport right across the street, so we're able to walk over and interact with other locations fairly easily. Out of that 4 million units that we produce, we typically are able to get that to the customer in 6 days. So a lot of what we do has a very short lead time. And if you notice in the upper right-hand corner, about a little over 6,000 SKUs, so about 6,000 unique part numbers that we produce. So in terms of, from my background in automotive, we're absolutely high mix, low volume. So we do a lot of changeovers and a lot of essentially low run products. However, it is a standard product when we get through it. We somewhat already spoke about the 3 business units: trauma, which would be any major bone group of the body, the CMFs, exclusive to the face and scalp area. Spine, which is restricted to just the spinal area, the spinal column itself. And then some instruments are used. They're non-implants, but they are used in the surgeries themselves. So a drill bit, locating pins, items of that nature. All right. Won't go into this very heavily, but you can see roughly about 500 pieces of equipment in our facility. We do everything. We've got a few photos of some of the equipment that we use. Everything is enclosed and self-contained, well guarded. We spent a lot of focus on ergonomics. Safety is our absolute priority, followed by quality. Of course, we're talking medical implants, something that would become a part of a human body. So that is first and foremost on our mind. And we provide, quite frankly, a premium product to the market with what we produce, primarily out of stainless steel. We do some titanium, and then in some applications for spine, we actually use some plastics. So next page, Josh, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask in further detail. What we're really looking at, our main focus at this point, is in the manufacturing realm. We've got machine operator and inspector positions that are open throughout the course of this past year. We've had some attrition, and we've also had some volume fluctuations, which have warranted us to increase our workforce. So we're always looking for machine operators, especially those that have any machining experience or, quite frankly, manufacturing experience that understands life in a factory. We also have quite a few specific openings that for engineering, both manufacturing and quality, as well as buyers, and from time to time we'll have a few other salaried type positions that come up. So Josh, you've got some links associated with each of these slides. You want to walk through that piece?
Sure. So ultimately, I'll skip kind of we'll go back to the contracting positions. So from the permanent positions that we have and direct anyone to the Jabil Careers website. We have to go through that from an application perspective, and it's easiest just to have an individual search, or for you to search specifically using horseheads. All of the opportunities, once you're there for our local facility will come up doing that. From a manufacturing sense, I hesitate a little bit in this sense. We have a model right now where we have over the past couple years held a number of contract workforce here on site, a pretty sort of stable level, and it's varied anywhere between probably 15 to 30 contractors at any given time that we've had. And so typically the model, honestly, has been most recently for those machine operator and inspector roles is having an individual come in as a contractor and work for a number of months, typically at least 3 by contract with Adecco, but up to maybe a year, depending upon our ability to bring on permanent headcount and bring those individuals in for full-time positions. So it's not impossible that we could have machine operator and inspector roles be permanent positions, but typically we have enough contractors on site where we're typically giving those individuals the first opportunities at those permanent positions that we have open and looking at converting them. So the pathway in most recently for those manufacturing roles has been through Adecco. We since becoming Jabil, Adecco is their partner vendor or preferred vendor. So we partner locally. Prior to that, we had worked with Kelly Services, but we worked with a Kelly Services on a national basis, and we actually couldn't work with a local organization. So actually, with the past year and a half, working with a local organization and a local branch has allowed us to just have a better connection and a better relationship to get individuals in. I think, Dustin can speak to this as well. We typically are bringing individuals in with very little experience in machining, or even very little experience in a manufacturing environment. And we are fully training them to be, inspectors and work in a highly regulated FDA environment, or machine operators. And building that skill set for them from the ground up. We have tried to work with some of the area BOCES from a high school perspective to see if there's kids or younger individuals who are interested in machining as roles, but it is a challenge for us to find individuals who want to come and work in a manufacturing environment. And I don't think the pictures do it justice from the facility itself. It's clean, it's bright, the temperature is regulated. So when you think of manufacturing environments as potentially being kind of hot, dirty, dusty environments, that is not the environment that we work in here. So I think just from an overall manufacturing environment, we kind of have a nice workspace for individuals to come into. So anything to add with that, Dustin, in terms of kind of from a skill set perspective, what we're typically looking for?
Yeah, so basic computer skills really help. We provide training. We don't expect anyone to understand and just walk in and immediately start running what we do. So we provide a new employee orientation to every employee. We provide on-the-job training. So we pair up new employees with trainers, so highly experienced individuals for the area that they would be assigned to. And then, of course, we, again, tied to being regulated, we track that training and ensure that they are qualified and ready to go before we turn them loose. So essentially, ability to learn and dependable transportation, ability to stand, really lifting is not much of a consideration for us. We talk about 35 pounds, but the reality of it is most folks would routinely lift something less than 10 pounds throughout the course of the day. Again, as Josh mentioned, the floor is very clean. So from a overall operating environment, it's kind of a country club in terms of the temperature and the cleanliness compared to some of the shops I've worked in the past.
Yeah. And again, the other thing I'll touch base on for us is, from my perspective, is where we see individuals struggle the most is maybe with a process orientation. So given that our processes are so highly regulated, individuals really do have to have a strong attention to detail and not just forego a process because it just seems like it'd be a little easier not to dip a part one more time, or every process has a huge amount of documentation associated with it and background in terms of why we do that process and why it has to be followed exactly. There's really not wiggle room associated with that in terms of trying to cut corners, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's spot on, Josh.
So that really kind of ended our presentation. I will click through a couple more slides. I just wanted to put them on here. I don't want to describe every single one of them, but what I wanted to show was just graphical representations of the different types of products that we make just the broad spectrum of products that we have, that really what we are trying to do is restore people's lives. So when they've had an accident or they've had a disease, we offer an opportunity for them to kind of be put back together. I'm not sure if we touched on this, but most of the internal fixation devices that we make, the medical devices that we make, are permanent. They're going to be in their body for the rest of their lives. So the plates really do help them return to a quality of life that they had before either an accident or a potential disease. And so I think that's important, and it helps people who work here really have a guiding sense of what we do and what purpose is behind the work that we're doing. And that's one really big piece of what we've stressed from a culture perspective here at the site. And it really, I believe, helps people to keep focused on the work that they're doing, because, like I said, that can be hard to do sometimes. But I think when you can tie that back to how impactful and how important the work that you're doing is to other people's lives, that's really key. So I'll just click through a couple of the slides, and you can kind of see on here varying sizes of different products in plates that we would make. Basically, for every part of the human body, every bone in the human body, we might make a plate or some type of fixation device for for any specific application. There are some of the veterinary products that Dustin spoke about. Dustin, you want to touch just real quickly on this one, since it's kind of different?
Yeah, so in this particular instance, we have the mandible, which is your jaw. We produce products that are made specifically for an individual patient. So our design team in the Philadelphia area will work alongside with a surgeon at any given hospital around the country, utilize CAT scans to create a 3D representation of the jaw. And as you can see, there's a section of this person's jaw that's missing. So whether it's from cancer or some other trauma, from let's say a car crash, or maybe a gunshot wound or anything, this person would have a portion of their jaw removed. And with this particular plate, we can use donor bone from typically one of their leg bones and reconstruct a portion of their jaw. And while this sounds fairly traumatic, it's actually leaps ahead of prior surgeries and prior technologies, so we can restore a quality of life for these individuals. So it gives them not only the ability to actually chew and eat normal food, it also returns them to a very near pre-surgery or pre-condition facial feature construct. So if you can imagine somebody that, with everything that's that they're experiencing is associated with nature of an injury such as this, then to have extreme disfiguration, the fact that a surgeon's able to essentially reconstruct their jaw to give them a very normal appearance is life-changing for these individuals. So this particular product we absolutely make is a one of a kind. Every piece that we produce, which is about 700 units a year, is designed specifically for one person in the world. And we schedule the surgery. We're able to produce that part in about 3 days. So our committed turnaround from the time that a plate is approved until the date that the surgery happens is 10 days. However, we exceed that time for manufacturing significantly. So you see on the right side of that photo, there's a couple of different cases. Some plates will go halfway around the jaw. Some will go completely around the jaw. And in some cases, a particular surgery will require 2 half plates. But we'll make anything that is needed in order to help restore that patient, to give them a quality of life again.
Thank you. There are pictures. Are there questions for us?
I just realized I was muted. I have a question. I have a bunch of questions actually. So one of my questions is, what kind of trainings are offered if so say someone comes in and they have minimal experience, what type of training can they expect to receive?
Yeah, so we have absolutely in recent years brought people in that have worked retail, that have worked fast food, and had no factory experience whatsoever. So we start them from the ground up. So we educate them not only on the requirements of working in a regulated industry, we teach them what when we call our process sheets, what the requirements are, how to understand what the instructions are that tell them what to do. We give them hands-on training for the equipment itself. So we show them how to operate and inspect and gauge the product and make adjustments as necessary. So that all comes as a package between computer-based training, where we have documents and essentially slideshows that are established to educate and inform everyone of the requirements of the job. And that's actually quite extensive, more so than any other industry I have been in. But then we also have a significant, we rely heavily on our existing workforce. So they pass on the knowledge, the training, and then we have verification. And we do essentially audits from our quality team to make sure that the folks are doing what they say they're doing. And quite frankly, if they have questions, we provide them with individuals that they can ask for help.
Cool.
Does that answer what you were looking for?
It does, and I'm going to steal it one more time. I have a two-part question.
Okay.
I'm very familiar with Amber. She's an amazing recruiter. I've worked with her in the past multiple times. And one of the questions I have is, you mentioned that this is a contract position. Is it a possible contract to permanent position, or is it just like temporary, like a 6-month contract or a 12-month contract? And what would be the starting pay rate for that? It's a two-part question. And I'm done, guys, I promise.
No problem. Yeah, so what we do is what Josh had spoken about. So we started the model where we would bring folks in as contract. As we have attrition, as we have openings to get to our budgeted headcount numbers, we convert those contract individuals into permanent positions. So we obviously, as kind of what I just detailed, invest a lot of time and resources into educating these folks. So it's not really in our best interest to see them walk out the door for another position. So we like to convert them to full time. Of course, there is a period of time, contractually with the contract agency, but we are in the process of doing that currently, converting a few folks that we've had in here that have met the requirements and are ready to convert to full time. So that's really what we try to do. Our goal is not to just have contract folks on for the long haul. And it's unusual that we have what you typically think of as a temporary position where we just need some help for a short time. While that does happen with some of our IL type jobs, most of our direct labor manufacturing jobs are here to stay. So we bring them in, we educate them, and then we essentially get them up to speed. And quite frankly, we tell them that they interview every day. And then we offer them opportunity to convert as the time arises. And then Josh, I'll let you field the financial side of things. I apologize, everyone. I have to drop off to another commitment, but I really thank you for everyone's time. It's been fantastic to be able to present this and get in front of everyone.
Thank you, Dustin, very
Thank you.
much for coming today.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye now.
Still there. Oh, there he is. All right. So just real briefly, all of our contract workforce, so both machine operators and inspectors at this point, we moved last year to start them at $14.25 an hour. And I don't know if we're going to have to reassess just from a competitive perspective if that's going to have to change for us, and not given the recent changes in the minimum wage here locally. So that was kind of a big move. I will say probably 3 years ago, we were about at 11.50 and we jumped up to 13. And then last year we were like, again, we needed to know that we had to, continue to stay competitive. So we moved to 14.25 at that point. We have recently lost some, what I will say, employees in the 1 to 3 year range to other local manufacturing companies. Most often we're reported in the range of $17 to $18 for a starting wage there. Rotating shifts, which is different than what we have, but I'm not sure we're going to be able to get to 17 or 18 from a starting wage. So,
are the machine operators and inspectors, are those your most entry level positions?
Yeah, I mean, we would have some other entry level positions. We do have some individuals in a warehouse in like a planning and shipping area.
Mhm.
Those would be what we call material handlers. It's a small
Okay.
group. There's about 12 of them. So we just don't see, we have 180 machine operators and approximately 40 to 50 inspectors. So we highlighted those two just because in general, that's where we'd seen both the most attrition and the most opportunities to have individuals come in. But we do sometimes have material handling positions. But again, the skill set there would be, we really are working off a model where we're training individuals to come in. So it's a high school grad or someone who's got an equivalent. We aren't necessarily finding, or we haven't recently been looking for an experienced machinist who's gotten 10 to 15 years of experience. Again, we're probably not likely to, given kind of the pay structure we have, we're probably not likely to pull them in. Plus, we've also built this model where we have a contract. I think we have, Dustin didn't say, but I think we have about 15 contractors currently on site. We had actually in June of last year, we had reduced that number down from 50 down to 0.
Wow.
We actually went on shared work and a week of shutdown throughout the summer. So we were on shared work from June until the beginning of September. I think just the uncertainty with demand with J&J, our primary customer, just made things right. Everything was very, very unsettled. But since then, it's gone the opposite direction. Our demand is extremely high. We honestly have people working a lot of overtime on the weekends. We really try to stay away from mandatory overtime, but there have been situations where we have to do that, and that's frustrating to the existing individuals we have here. So they're like, continue to get us more help. We did see, I'll just be transparent here, we did see some turnover in the end of the year, November and December. The end of October was 18 months as part of Jabil for us. And so with that, there were some incentives for individuals to stay 18 months with the new company. And we saw some individuals, when I say turnover, it actually mostly was retirements. So individuals both in the professional level and then the manufacturing level kind of just said, you know what, I'm going to wait till that happens, till that incentive program, that 18-month incentive is over, and then I'm going to retire after that. So we saw, I think November was 4% and December was 6% from a turnover percentage for us, and that's high. We're usually running 1% or less in terms of turnover. So we have a lot of open positions right now, I guess is where I was going with that.
I have a question. What is it like? What is the education levels? So I saw that you had two separate kind of groups. You had contract, and then you had your skilled labor. It's kind of like broken in two separate groups of people. So you have your contract, and then it's almost like your skilled quality, your supply chain type jobs broken out.
So The ones that I have broken up that typically are the ones that we post from a professional level on the Jabil website would be more exempt level positions, more, I guess what I would call professional level. But there honestly are, Jabil is a very open company in terms of its requirements, specifically around degrees. So when we worked for Johnson & Johnson, in order to be a supervisor, in order to be an engineer, or to work in finance, you better have that degree or else they weren't even going to consider you. That was just the perspective or philosophy of the company. Jabil is more of an experiential based company, and honestly is definitely willing to give individuals a try. If they've had experience in an area and don't necessarily carry the degree, they're still going to at least give them an opportunity or give them a chance. And so, I think it's sometimes hard to stretch. If you're looking for a very specific engineering position, you might need the background or the degree in there to be able to do that, unless we have very specific experience. But I will tell you, we're in the process of hiring a former employee back in as a manufacturing engineer. They left here as a technician, but based upon the skill set and the experience they got while they're gone, they're going into an engineering role without a degree. So the kind of breakout really was more by the types of positions. In that, from the hourly workforce, we're typically working through the contract agency, and I wanted to just kind of be clear about how individuals would, go from a connection standpoint in terms of they're probably never going to likely see the machine operator position put out there on the Jabil web career site.
So it's kind of fluid. They could move from one to the other.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And there's growth paths within each one of the manufacturing roles. So the machine operator role, as they grow in experience in terms of different cells they can operate in, different machines, kind of numbers, they move through machine operator levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. Again, Jabil has a strong belief internally in terms of promotion. I have an individual who is a material handler and is now being promoted to the area supervisor for that role. So very much so, individuals within this company have the opportunity to grow from the ground up into leadership positions. And that was it's also very similar to the original Synthase company. So out of our operations supervisors, probably there's 10 of them on various shifts, and 8 of them grew from machine operator roles. 2 of them are from external hires within like the past 3 years. So
Okay.
I think that's important for people to know, that they can grow within a company when they're interviewing or when you're going out and letting the public know what you're about.
Absolutely. Any more questions? It looks like they're all done.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
for coming
Thank
today.
you.
It was very informative and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Absolutely. Take care. Have a great weekend.
Yes.